With the general elections just days away, Nigeria is about to experience an onslaught of public servants, both appointed and elected. These public servants will drive all the policies that will ultimately determine our success as a nation in all sectors. There are rules guiding these public servants, from the president all the way down to the smallest councillors. These rules or codes are guided by Nigeria's Code of Conduct Bureau, all 14 of them. And this week, the Federal Capital Territory Administration, in collaboration with the Bureau, held a workshop to remind public servants on what these codes mean and why adherence is crucial for national development. We'll show you in our focus on the nation's capital. We had a chat with the chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau for a breakdown of the most controversial of these codes and his plans for the public servants about to join our national machine. And as we do every week, we give an update on the major stories from Nigeria's presidency. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Megwa. Let's begin with a mop-up of major stories from Nigeria's presidency.
The Council of State has accepted the Naira redesign policy, but faults its implementation, advising President Muhammadu Buhari to print more money or allow old and new currency run concurrently to ease tension. Briefing State House correspondents after the council meeting chaired by the President, the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, stated that the council illuminated the need for aggressive action by the CBN to ensure adequate supply of the Naira in the system for proper implementation of the policy. President Muhammadu Buhari has asked member states of the African Union, AU, to imbibe the culture of peer review and peer-to-peer learning for proactive and strong leadership on the continent. The president made the appeal at the launch of the second country review report and the National Programme of Action of Nigeria at the State House.
We are all called to be reminded that the report will strengthen the implementation agenda 2063, which is a strategic framework for the socio-economic transformation of the African continent over the next 50 years. It comes with a strong mandate on NAPAD and the African Peer Review Mechanism, especially now that the continent is gearing towards the implementation of second 10-year development plan to consolidate and seek the acceleration of better society.
Just days to the conduct of the general elections, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has affirmed that the two major encumbrances faced by the Commission have been resolved. For this reason, it assures that the elections will hold as scheduled. In a chat with State House correspondents after briefing the Executive Council on preparations towards the elections and challenges, the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, identified that petrol scarcity and the currency issue instituted challenges that have now been resolved following assurances by the CBN governor.
We took members of council through all the preparations that we have put in place for the election and the few challenges that we are facing and the steps that we have taken. We raised those challenges, but we have found a solution to those challenges. So be rest assured that the election will hold as scheduled on the 25th of February for national and on the 11th of March for the state election.
The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) says no adjustment will be made to the schedule for the collection of permanent voter cards. This position was made known by a national commissioner at the Commission, Mrs. May Agbamuche Mbu, during a public hearing organized by the National Assembly Committees on INEC on the extent of implementation of the 2022 Electoral Act. The Supreme Court of Nigeria has restrained the federal government from implementing the February 10 deadline for the old Naira notes to stop being legal tenders. Kaduna, Kogi and Zamfara State had filed an ex-parte motion on February the 3rd asking the Apex Court to hold to Central Bank of Nigeria's Naira redesign policy. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has held two separate meetings with the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria and the National Security Advisor, asking for their intervention for the successful conduct of the 2023 general elections. The INEC chairman is specifically asking the CBN governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, to give the commission some form of waiver on the recent cash withdrawal limit set by the Apex Bank, so that INEC can attend to some peculiar logistics duties during the elections.
In view of the recent policy involving the redesign of some denominations of our national currency and the limits placed on cash withdrawals and availability, we consider this meeting important in addressing some of the areas of concern with just 17 days to the 2023 general election.
And the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mongono, retired, is promising adequate security as the nation plans for the 2023 National Housing and Population Census. He made the promise at the inauguration of the Census Logistics and Security Committee in Abuja.
This could manifest in the form of physical attacks on NPC staff and facilities, attacks on security personnel, and those ancillary staff on census duty. It is also critical to devise appropriate strategies for storage, distribution, and retrieval of census equipment and materials where the need arises.
The Federal Capital Territory Administration collaborated with the Code of Conduct Bureau to re-educate appointed and elected public officials on the codes guiding their ethics while in office. As a people, we have watched in disappointment public servants who flagrantly breach these codes. Some get away with it, others face the full wrath of the law and even go to jail for these breaches. We picked the minds of the workshop participants on how these codes of conduct have impacted their service to the people. Please watch this. To establish a high standard of morality in the conduct of government business and to ensure that the actions and behavior of public officers conform to the highest standards of public morality and accountability. That is the mandate of Nigeria's Code of Conduct Bureau. And this workshop organized by the Bureau is to sensitize appointees and elected officials under the FCT administration on what lines they must not cross in the discharge of their duties. It is a scanty haul considering how many appointees and elected officials make up the FCT administration. The Code of Conduct Bureau is provided for in Section 153 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Its vision is to ensure honesty, transparency, and accountability in public office. And to execute this vision, this workshop harps on the 14 codes of public servants. They are conflict of interest with duties, restriction on specified officers, prohibition of foreign accounts, retired public officers in general, specific retired public officers, gifts or benefits of all kinds, restriction on loans, gifts, or benefits to certain public officers, bribery of public officers, abuse of power, membership of societies, declaration of assets, allegations of breach of code, agents and nominees, as well as exemptions.
I hope, have you heard of the Code of Conduct Tribunal before? That's the only agency, that's the only judicial arm that CCB can actually prosecute offenders. The moment you breach the Code of Conduct to public officers, your cases are actually, after thorough investigation, that is where we go. That is our first court that we approach so that we can actually prosecute offenders. Once you receive any news from contractors in the course of your duty, then you should know as a matter of fact that you are in breach of the Code of Conduct of Public Officers. A public officer shall only accept, so this is the interesting part. Maybe we talk about this slightly, that a public officer shall only accept personal gifts or benefits from relatives or from personal friends to such extent and on such occasions as are recognized by what? By customs. The Constitution is also giving us this free opening that you can receive gifts from home. But it says personal friends. Now, the contour or the extent to which such things can be given is not defined. Now, however, customary gifts must be within reasonable range. They must be reasonable, they must be acceptable. There must be things that, yes, are actually justified. You understand? They are not just, they won't just be gifts that you want to blow your head off the roof.
Certain provisions in the code struck hard with some of the attendees of the workshop, especially with the section that bars public officers from collecting gifts and bribes.
Few even suspect that that gift is given for you, to you, in order to change some of the taxation that is meant to the office. Don't even collect it. You don't even need anything. The office is taking care of you. You are receiving your salary. You are receiving your allowances. So all officers that engage in receiving all this type of deal usually land themselves in trouble.
The code that shocked me here and is important is about accepting gifts from people. And what I learned there, they say if you are accepting any gift, you should put it in record, because someone that gives you a gift is expecting a reward from you. But if you did pay him back with thank you, it will be a case and he will use it against you.
A lot of people make mistakes of not knowing. So it's important that we continue to educate the public. And then people that are being educated take it also seriously. If you notice how I've been listening with rapt attention, I'm a learning animal. I want to learn every time. And it's important because when you know, it's easier for you to comply. And I can tell you a lot of people who do not comply to some of the rules and regulations in the public sector, especially for us that are appointees that are not called civil servants, might be an error of omission in terms of not knowing, not that you deliberately want to bridge the gap or bridge the law.
For the permanent secretary in the FCTA, this workshop is necessary, seeing as the elections are around the corner, and a lot of public office holders need to be reminded that their conduct in and out of the office is regulated.
It is not just at this time. We have had series of such engagements. Periodically, for the mainstream, we have the Servicom, who is responsible for addressing service improvement. We have the ACTU that is responsible for promoting transparency in the system. All these hold periodic seminars and conferences within the system. But we felt, let us also escalate this to our political officers, who are our bosses, so that what we do at management level is also brought to their attention.
It is quite a high level of morality expected from public office holders, and one would like to believe that with that level of power, the responsibility of adhering to these standards will be second nature to public office holders. But this has not always been the case. The EFCC boss, Abdulrasheed Bawa, said 978 corrupt Nigerians were convicted between January and September of 2021. At the time, only 2 high-profile public office holders were in the list of convictions that Mr. Bawa cited. They are Abdulrasheed Maina, the former head of the Pension Task Force, and Farouk Lawan, a former federal senator, who were sentenced to prison over varying degrees of money laundering and bribery. Among high-profile individuals convicted of crimes that break the code of conduct for public officers are at least 7 governors. Former governor of Edo State, Lucky Gbinedion, is the first Nigerian ex-governor to be convicted of looting public funds. The late Diepri Alamesia, former governor of Bayelsa State, was sentenced to 2 years in jail in 2007 on charges of corruption and money laundering. Former governor of Delta State, Mr. James Ibori, was sentenced to 13 years in jail by a London judge for stealing $250 million in public funds in Nigeria during his time as governor. James Balangilari was governor of Adamawa State for just 7 months and was convicted of awarding a contract for the procurement of 25 vehicles at a cost of 167 million naira without following due process. Mr. Ojus Okalo, who served as Abia State Governor from May 29, 1999 to May 29, 2007, was convicted by the Lagos Division of the Federal High Court in 2019 and sentenced to 12 years in prison for 7.65 billion naira fraud. An Abuja High Court in 2018 sentenced former Plateau State Governor Joshua Darie to 14 years imprisonment on the charges of criminal breach of trust and misappropriation of funds to the tune of 1.6 billion naira while he was governor of the state. In 2020, a 12-year jail term was handed a former Taraba State Governor, Reverend Jolin Yami, by the Court of Appeal in Abuja. He was convicted of stealing about 1.6 billion naira belonging to the state. Workshops such as this one are the government's attempt at engraving these 14 codes of conduct in the hearts and minds of public office holders. There are still many loopholes in these codes of conduct, and there have been calls in various quarters for their review. But for now, it is hoped that these public office holders and those expected to join the service after the elections in February and March adhere to these codes of conduct. My guest on the program is Professor Isa Mohammed, the Chairman, Code of Conduct Bureau. He speaks to us on the ways he and his team ensure compliance by public officials to the 14 codes. Ways he has made areas like asset declaration more effective since he came into office, and his plans for the incoming public officials. Professor Mohammed Isa, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
You're welcome, Kayla, and viewers, you're also welcome.
Apparently, civil servants are supposed to abide by these 14 codes of conduct that I got to learn about earlier this week in the training that your office is holding for public officers who are in the nation's capital. Talk to us a little bit about these codes and why they're so important for public officers, both elected and appointed, to adhere to them.
When we say public officers, we're referring to about 4 categories of public officers in Nigeria. The elected political office holders, the appointed political office holders, the civil servants, we also call them public officers for the purposes of enforcement of Code of Conduct for public officers, and the retirees.
I'd like to take you up on a few of these codes. One of them is that about asset declaration. There's a lot of clarification people need on this particular code, and I did hear that you made some changes to the way asset declaration is done in Nigeria since 2019. What are some of these changes that you've made, and why is it important for public office holders to understand asset declaration before they get into office?
When you declare your asset in the form designated by the Code of Conduct Bureau and submit to the Code of Conduct Bureau, then the Code of Conduct Bureau will examine. That is verification, and that is what you are talking about. And this one, we're doing it. Right now, we're on it. Of course, we have a backlog because of some challenges we made when we came to office. We worked hard to change the way and manner it was being done, to be more proactive than submissive.
We actually got to speak to a lot of the participants at the event, and one of the areas that they needed, that really touched a lot of those public office holders is that about gifts, collecting of gifts. And there seems to be a bit of a loophole in this particular area of the code, because you're not allowed to accept gifts, but at the same time you can get gifts from friends and family. Isn't it possible that someone who's trying to collect a bribe can use the guise of being a family member or a very close personal friend to a public officer to perpetrate that crime of giving him inducement in the form of a gift, pretending to be a friend or a family member of this particular public officer?
A gift is not left as a gift blank, on blank check. There are a lot of qualifications attached to that gift by the law. And these qualifications relate to the gifts recognized under custom and tradition. For instance, you have a naming ceremony. Your family members, depending on the size of your family, can come forward to say, okay, this is my 100,000 naira, this is my 10,000 naira, this is my 5,000 naira, depending on their economic status and how close they are to you. So if you can establish that relationship between you and the person giving you that gift, traditionally and customarily, and this is an occasion whereby such gifts are being extended, it's recognized, fine. Maybe burial ceremony or wedding ceremony. So occasions sometimes determine what kind of gifts come to you. And sometimes not only families and relations, but you find out that even friends that are close to you can come in to contribute when you have such an occasion at hand to celebrate. So they can come in but the issue is that where there is need for you to establish that relationship, can you establish it? Where there is need for you to establish that custom and tradition, can you establish it? This is the most important thing. So it was about gifts and loans. Sometimes a loan will be given to you, but that loan must come from a recognized institution. A loan may be given to you and it may be written off. But the papers will show that, yes, the loan has been given to you, but backdoor arrangement will tell you, please we don't need you to pay that loan. Just leave it. We'll just record it as paid. But that loan must also have to come from the recognized lending institution, either a bank or money lenders or whatever, licensed money lenders or whatever. So it is not just an open issue. So where the need arises, you come and explain. And the issue of gifts, the issue of loan, the issue of any other thing whereby you can accumulate or amass wealth as a public officer over and above that can change your living standard over and above your lawful income. The burden of proof is on you to explain.
We do have a lot of people who are about to come into public service with the elections around the corner, and they're going to have to abide by these codes in their time in office. What are some of the things that you would like to let them know? What should they be bearing in mind as they come into the public service?
In the last 3 months, as far back as October last year, we've been deliberating on that at board level, at board management level. And we have now zeroed our mind. The last meeting we did last year, was it last year or early this year? The first meeting we had was INEC chairman. We had a meeting with him. We told him that we are coming in to inform you for the information purposes that we are going to monitor 2023 general elections. CCB is going to monitor it. And any errant public officer, from the INEC chairman to the last person in INEC, we find violating Code of Conduct for Public Officer, we're going to prosecute him. Immediately after the election is declared, after the elections, winners are declared, certificate of returns are issued, we will ask the INEC to give us the list of the successful elected officers. I assure you, just as I said, 99%, so also by 2023 election, 99% will comply for the politically elected and politically appointed. I assure you this.
Professor Mohammed Issa, that's all the time we have. But I want to thank you very much for being with us on Dateline Abuja, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you. We are most appreciative of your concern about the Code of Conduct Bureau, and you are most welcome.
Thanks to my guest and to everyone who spoke to us today on the program. Public service is just that, service to the public. It's a national mission, one that anyone should be honored to carry out. It's sad, a lot of the things we've seen in this regard. People stealing blatantly, false asset declarations, demands for bribery and inducements. It's more than just the actions of one person or a group of people. The bigger issue is the impact these acts have on the fabric of the nation. Public officials are a mirror of who the people are, but they are also the example that the people imitate. While the Code of Conduct Bureau does what it can to educate and ensure conformity to the codes of conduct, politicians and appointees of government must focus on service to the people, not service to themselves. That's Dateline Abuja this week. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I am Kayla Magwa. See you next time.